quite frankly, that's what makes, jobs and life miserable sometimes, when you're trying to fit yourself or fit your business into an area that just doesn't make sense. It's frustrating. You bang your head against the wall, and, you have unhappy customers, and nobody wants that. And, so I think it is so important, but it can be the hardest thing to do.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Brews and BizDev, and today's illustrious guest is Rachael Brown from ESC and Meliora Group. Did I get that right?
Got it, Meliora Consulting.
Yeah, yay, Meliora Consulting. So as we get into the action here, why don't you just go ahead and kind of give your elevator pitch, right? Tell the folks who you are and what you do at both these companies, and then we'll get to the important stuff, which is the opening the beers.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Paul. I am the Director of Business Development for Employer Services Corporation, which is an HR outsourcing firm. We've been in business for 25 years, privately owned here in Buffalo, and I've personally been with the company for 10 years. And we do HR consulting, so things like labor law compliance, employee relations, employee training and development, on-call, on-site support, HR projects, that kind of thing. We also do payroll and employee benefits as well for businesses. And then our subsidiary company, Meliora Consulting, we acquired about 3 years ago. It's a company that was started in Philadelphia. And the owner of that, who's the managing partner now, wanted to move back to Buffalo. Him and his wife are from Buffalo, and wanted to raise their kids here and all the great things that are going on in Buffalo. So we acquired the company. It's kind of a nice fit. It's a continuous improvement consulting company, and so it is a team of Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belts. So we have a couple of them. 5 of them here in Buffalo, and then we have 3 other team members that work, remotely, kind of based on where they were in Philly. And we do all kinds of projects with clients designed to help them solve kind of advanced or tricky business problems, improve virtually any kind of process within their business, make data-driven business decisions, any kind of capacity. So it's a pretty cool business model that is kind of generally the kind of work that you see done by some of the very large consulting companies that everybody's heard of, the McKinseys and the Boston Consulting Groups of the world. With, they're huge. And if you want to get in with them, you're looking at 6 figures at least, right? So our solution kind of scales that down a little bit and makes it affordable for all kinds of different businesses. And we're able to go in and work with them on all kinds of different solutions to help their businesses just kind of adapt a continuous improvement mindset and grow. So it's been really fun working on that side. I split my time 50-50. So I serve as business development director for both entities, and been a little bit more of a focus on Meliora being a newer thing lately, but I'm having a good time doing both. So
nice. Yeah. It's good to have access to those kind of companies. I'm pretty sure it's 6 figures just to have them pitch you if you're talking about McKinsey.
Exactly. It's a little bit out of the scope of, kind of the everyday business that we see here in Buffalo. But those kind of solutions, make such a big difference. So that's where I've really been having fun with working with this group. We have a couple anchor clients. It's kind of funny. Our first client, when our managing partner moved back up to Buffalo, he bought the house of one of the founders of ACV. Oh. And they've been one of our earlier, so they get to talking, what
nice. Yeah.
Et cetera. And they've been one of our, one of our clients ever since. And we have a few other anchor clients here, but then being able to kind of spread that out and just work on some pretty unique projects with smaller businesses here has been super rewarding and fun. So yeah. It's
no doubt.
That kind of thing.
Cool. Which, if I might ask, which founder was it?
George.
Oh, it was George? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Maybe you can say his last name.
I'm not going to try because I'm going to look like a jerk. So
Me too.
I don't know if you look like less of a jerk by not trying, but I'm going to go with that route.
George C.
Yes. George at ACV. I'm going to stick with that. It's easy to tell. Excellent. And why don't you now tell us which beer you picked to feature and why.
Okay, I picked 12 Gates IPA,
Mhm.
West Coast IPA. So I picked it for a couple reasons. One, because I really love it. I think it's delicious. It's one of my favorite. I'm definitely into the kind of brewery explosion that we've been having here in Western New York, right? I really have tried to check out all the new ones as they pop up, and those tend to be some of my favorite outings. Is going to breweries. This one's kind of one of my favorites, but also they have a bunch of founders of the company. But a bunch of people got together to start 12 Gates. One of them is a friend of mine. He was in my Leadership Buffalo class in 2014.
Oh,
so
nice.
as he was getting it started, of course, he was sharing that with all of us. And so we went in there as they were like building out the brewery, kind of having some earlier tasting. So I've always had a little bit of a fondness for 12 Gates. And as they've grown, all the breweries are, but they do some kind of cool things. Like they have this cool, in normal times when we don't have a pandemic going on, they have a really fun, outdoor summer festival. And, they've been a very willing participant in some of the charity golf tournaments that I've been involved with, setting up tastings, and they're just really nicely connected to the community. So as a company, I like them a lot. And as beer brewers, I like them even more.
That's excellent. Well, let's get to it, huh?
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers. Delicious, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think this is possibly the first time I've had this canned or bottled. Either way, I've had it at bars and actually fairly recently, pre-pandemic. Fairly recently, I should make that clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a standard for a while down at, Giuseppe's or something on Allen. We would go there for lunch, and out of all their on tap selection, this would be the pick. This would be the pick on a weekly basis. And yeah, it gets the job done for sure.
I mean, sometimes it's hard to pick because there are just so many good local beers. I mean, it's really crazy. It's trying so many different ones. Like I love how local brewers put little twists on the way that they develop these things. And I kind of love the process. Like, it's an art and a science, right? All in one. The science of brewing beer and the art of like putting a little bit of twist in it. And I also am really into, I'm not ashamed to admit that I sometimes choose my beer based on the can design. So
it happens. Yeah.
Consumers or Wegmans or whatever, when I'm getting beer to have at home, like, okay, like they either hired or have some really creative artist who is designing this can. So that in and of itself makes it worth giving it a try to me. So
yeah. Well, that's what packaging is for, right? Is to draw you in. And if you don't have another frame of reference and you're staring at giant racks of all these thousands at this point, different kinds of beers, how are you supposed to know? I mean, even if you just go in IPA land, there's a million different ones, right? So,
oh my God, totally.
Some are cooler looking than others, and sometimes that's what gets them bought. And then, of course, they have to be good to buy them again, right?
Exactly.
That's the key.
The packaging gets you in the door, and the product makes you come back.
Yes.
Doing my MBA right now at UB. I'm going through one of their executive MBA programs, and so one of the classes I took was marketing. And I've been in business development my entire career, but not really on the marketing side. Although now it encompasses a lot of what I do, a lot of my responsibilities. But we do have a marketing person who kind of gives us the advice. But it was really interesting to me learning about how packaging is like a complete strategy in and of itself, and it's something that I've kind of always taken for granted. Like. Yep. You throw it in a box or you throw it in a can and away it goes. But we went through this whole thing about, why the size and the shape matters. And, depending on the product, does it need to be stackable? And, where does the package go on a shelf? And all of these things that like you as a guy that has a lot more marketing know-how than I do probably think about all the time. And it's just these like little things, that the average everyday person doesn't think about. And then when you learn about it, you're like, okay, that really does influence my buying decision, right? Or influence like what catches my eye or what makes me pick something up and take a second look at it. So it's interesting.
It is. There's, that's the one thing of I mean, marketing is just this one word, right? And then you cover so many different bases with it from, I mean, packaging, I mean, pre-packaging, designing, product design, all the way through, of course, what most everybody thinks of, which gets into advertising and then gets into digital stuff. And, but there's, a billion different places you can really specialize and become an expert. And there's no possible way to become an expert across the board.
Totally.
But you can at least be, what do they say in digital marketer? The T-shaped marketer, right? Where you know a little bit, enough more than your average person about everything, but then you've got your specialty and that's what you focus on. And,
right.
And it's pretty important to know that, like what that is, right? To know your lane and to represent that. And certainly packaging, merchandising, not my lane. I mean, I know.
Oh no, you froze on me.
Oh yeah, there it is. It's freezing. Hey, we're back.
Yep.
Cool.
We're back. Yay.
But yeah, a lot
you're moving on.
Yeah, a lot of things to specialize. And here's the fun of doing things on Zoom all the time, right? Is sometimes you can't help it. It freezes. But so I'm curious, actually, you mentioned marketing, and I know that, there's someone kind of in the mix at ESC, and it's an old school, as I would say, the model is for the consulting group, right? Where it's that old school, it's a sales driven, relationship driven, you bring a service to it, and then at some point they add in marketing as necessary, right? And it helps. Often it's also the first thing to get cut if you have to cut things at certain times. And so I'm curious as to what you think the most interesting part as far as like what you've been learning and just starting to apply. And specifically what I'd like to know is, as you're learning these new things, in school and from marketing people, what do you think is the biggest missing from those kind of business models? Like, what do you think that is that people are missing the most that they could be taking advantage of in sales-driven kind of organizations? Like, what's the easiest thing they could just jump into and it would really help right away?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I think it's interesting. One of my bigger focuses this year, kind of as I mentioned at the beginning, is to grow Meliora and grow it here locally. And, being a service that is not a household name, right? You think of certain things that, kind of everybody knows what it is. And even the other side of our business, HR, right? If I say to you, we do HR consulting, there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of HR, and we don't do all of them. We don't do recruiting, for example, but you have kind of a sense of what HR is, right? Mm-hmm. Most people do. Whereas when I say continuous improvement, that is not really all that clear to many people. And there's a lot of kind of questions out there about, what that is and what that means. And, is it really something that's going to benefit my business, or are you just another consultant that's going to, charge me all kinds of money and not really do a whole lot? Mm-hmm. We're very different. We're a very hands-on, very kind of, build close relationships and actually go on site. And, our team is all Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belts, and we go and deploy a very kind of specific set of tools that are designed to drive results. And for every project that we've done, we have always exceeded the investment, and we keep careful track of that. So in terms of, I think there's a lot of things that, kind of people miss when they're thinking about how to develop or how to grow a business. But I think that one of them is really keeping careful track of what it is that you do and what the results you get for your clients, what those results look like, particularly when you're in a service field. When you're in when you're selling, widgets or whatever, every business has its challenge, but it's a little bit more, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can see it, you can say, this is what the cost is to you, this is how you're going to use it, either to develop your own product or resell it to somebody, and it's a little bit easier, whereas it might be a little bit more difficult to quantify. So for me, we really look at, with each project that we do and each thing that we do, what is that return to our client? What does that mean? What does that look like? And then we're able to tell our story a little bit better. To me, business development is about having conversations. It's about painting the picture. It's about really being able to, to allow businesses to see, hey, what would this look like for me prior to making the investment? So I think the more stories that you can tell, the more you can kind of really understand why your existing clients use you and how you can translate that into other businesses getting the same results, the better. You and I know each other from relationships. So you and I are both kind of relationship people, right? Like I think we really both believe in the power of building genuine relationships. Mm-hmm. The things that I always liked about you is, whenever we would get coffee or lunch or have conversations or whatever, it just feels like you're talking to a friend, right? We talk about things that we have going on in our businesses. We talk about things going on in our lives, and so from there, it's just, it feels like a natural way that we can evolve into how can we help each other out. And that's what I really love, building relationships with people and getting to know people. And so just by kind of going out and talking and not having it in the back of your head that I want to sell them something, but really just saying, hey, I want to get to know you, and doing it from a genuine place of really enjoying people's company, the business comes. I think that sometimes people have a very short-sighted view, right? You need to have this much business closed by next week. And in my opinion, you're not really building long-term, business that way. You're kind of putting pressure on your salespeople to sell for all the wrong reasons. You're putting pressure on them to just get someone in the door and someone to sign a contract. And ultimately, that's going to do two things that are not desirable for anybody. I mean, first, it may be that you're not really giving somebody a solution that they need, which is going to sour that relationship in and of itself. You're not going to have that long-term business. And second, you're going to get a reputation for the kind of person that is not really someone that you want to do business with. And, I think that in any town, but particularly a town like Buffalo, where everybody is like one or two, degrees apart, really making sure that you conduct yourself with integrity everywhere you go and in every dealing is absolutely key to having long-term success, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So that's probably a long-winded answer because I'm a long-winded person, but
hey, we're on a podcast. That's what we do.
An answer to your question somewhere in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the storytelling metrics, right? So the first thing, talking about just metrics and actually measuring like how things are working, like who are we delivering to, how's it going, and then having those stories that not only you tell, but, and I'm going to add this piece in slightly, of course, your customers telling the story is always the best thing, right? So,
yes.
Which in marketing and in content, looks like testimonials and legit ones, video
yes.
testimonials, all that kind of stuff. Like sound is way more convincing than consultants or anyone else. Certainly, marketers, consultants, selling ourselves.
Right.
That can be difficult. Of course, we all think we're brilliant and geniuses, and we would do the best work ever. But yeah, somebody else saying no. Not only did they do a great job, but here's what they did and here's what the results are. I would think, particularly in consulting, I spent some time, plenty of time in the land of, consulting, organizational development, those kinds of things. And yes, people being able to describe, well, here's what happened in my business, right? Or here's what happened in my person really tells a story that someone trying to sell something, write a blog post, pitch, they can never match. You can never match a happy customer saying, here's why you should use these people. And which is always, I think, the best play for consulting specifically. Most businesses, but consulting, someone speaking in plain language that other people understand, saying like, whether Lean Six Sigma and all this stuff is, or continuous improvement, whether or not the jargon. Like, here's what happened. We were here, and then we did this, and then we were here, right? It's the classic before and after. That paints it more than a white paper ever could.
Yeah, I think you brought up two really good points that I wholeheartedly agree with, and the first is definitely having people tell your story kind of on your behalf. That's really how we grew ESC. I was just talking to an ESC client. He's like, I have never heard of you, and I've been in business for 40 years. You've been in business for 25 years. How is that possible? And I said, we really don't do a lot of advertising, and our business grows based on referrals, right? And customer referrals. And those are the best things. And when I'm talking to prospective clients on either side of the business, I literally say pretty much exactly what you said. I can tell you how great we are, but I work for the company, so of course I think we're great. Talk to this person and this person and this person and hear about what their experiences are. I feel like that's one of those things that is conventional wisdom that everybody kind of knows, but few people do it really well. It's easy to forget about that. And I think that it's so important. And the other thing you said that I really, that really resonated with me is the jargon thing. Like we all are just so accustomed to, we know our business and we know our industry. And so, you want to talk about it in the terms that maybe are natural to you because it's what you do every day, but are completely meaningless to the person that you're talking to,
Yeah.
right? Like, what does that mean exactly? What is that? What are you going to actually do? It's going to be impactful for my business. It's going to make this a worthwhile relationship. And it has nothing to do with knowing all the latest terms and trends and whatnot, and it has everything to do with what are the results going to be? Why is this important to me? Absent of the jargon, and have just a natural conversation. I also think that that's key.
Yeah, no, that's somebody told me a long time ago in the consulting field with the jargon thing, right? Like you keep it out, because if you think of a doctor was always like the best example. Obviously highly specialized, obviously knows a bunch of things, terms, whatever that I never even want to know. And but if the doctor comes back in the room and delivers, bad news, but it's just jargon, and it's, he's listing off body parts and Latin terms for things that I didn't even know existed, that's not a good doctor, right? Like that's not going to work well for me. And it will leave me confused, which in that scenario will have me be scared. In the marketing and BizDev scenario, just has me tune out, right? If you confuse someone, they're gone. That's it. And I know I've confused a lot of people over the years with jargon and otherwise. And it's easy. And then you get in the world of like having to write stuff and do copywriting and those kinds of things. And you realize how totally critical it is to keep it as simple as possible. Always edit down, yes. And just pull the noise out. Which is, actually the last guest, his big thing was breaking through the noise, right? Breaking through the noise, which has been a thing in marketing for a long time now in digital, but even more so now. And this, where you start and being able to break through the noise is your own. Yes. Right? If you got some muddled message, then you're not going to break, you're just adding to noise. But if you've got something that just cuts right through because it's actually well constructed, that's how it starts, right? And then you have to figure out how to get it in front of people. But if your message, I do a lot of LinkedIning. If you're doing social, right? You are getting in front of people. But are you saying the right thing? And have you cut out all of your own jargon, I'm so great, we blah, 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 and then speak to the customer about what matters to them in a way they can understand? It gets pretty easy to stand out in kind of a way because, like you said, while that's common wisdom, it's common wisdom in the same way that you should target is common wisdom, right? Like you should know who your customer profile is so that you know who they are when you're looking at them and how to speak to them. That's 101. That's like the first class, I think, in marketing. And nobody does it. Fresh out of school, 20 years later, we avoid it because, we're humans and our brains work based on fear and primal stuff. And I think for a second, like, but I'm going to lose out on people. Like, I just got to get this out there, and then we don't target. So
I think that's a fear. I think that's true in business, and I think that's true in life. Like you sometimes just have to be willing to walk away, and you have to be willing to just have people say no to you in business and in life, because the reality is, everybody, you can't be everything to everybody. And if you are everything to everybody, then you're not being true to yourself. And if you're not being true to yourself, then you're never going to give really good results in business or in life, right? Yeah. And so, sometimes you have to accept that not everybody is going to like you or that people are going to judge you. That is a hard lesson for everybody. It's certainly hard for me personally in business and in life, but it's true. And while our solutions, both on the ESC side and on the Meliora side, are applicable to lots of different industries and lots of different types of organizations, it's not the right solution for everybody. And the more that we can, kind of target appropriately and weed out the people who just are not going to find value in what we do, or maybe their mindset goes in a different way, not a bad way, just a different way, then why focus your time on those businesses for business and on those people for life, right? Like everything is too short to spend time focusing on people and businesses that are just not going to align with you. And quite frankly, that's what makes, jobs and life miserable sometimes, when you're trying to fit yourself or fit your business into an area that just doesn't make sense. It's frustrating. You bang your head against the wall and, you have unhappy customers and nobody wants that. And, so I think it is so important, but it can be the hardest thing to do, particularly for people who are just starting out. But even, I've been in in business and in business development for, 15 years now. And I still have to consciously remind myself of that. And I've been, on this planet for 40 years and I have to remind myself of that personally too. So
Oh yeah.
Easier said than done, but it is like just so true.
Yeah, yes. Far easier said than done. And reminders are critical, right? And also worth noting, not like that's not because we're idiots. That's because that stuff just gets lost. The brain's only going to hold so much, and we all get close to what we're doing, and we're not always thinking through the fundamentals. I always think of course, there's no shortage of sports and business analogies because, good Lord, there's just, I mean, maybe there's more war in business analogies, but otherwise, it's sports owns it, and it's because it's an easy analogy, right? Because unlike in most things, like business, you've got practice periods, you have these fundamentals, but then you have these closed game scenarios that they then end. Unlike us, we just keep on doing the same shit. Just kind of we're going to keep on going. But they have people in sports to remind you. Yes. And of course they hype you, and there's all that goes into coaching. But I mean, the vast part of coaching, besides technical get you to a better form, when you're really good at what you do, a lot of it's just reminding you, like, oh, by the way, like, did you shoot 25 free throws today as practice? Like, like just going through those kind of fundamentals. And there's a lot of people doing it, and they're paid a lot of money to do it. And that's their whole function, right? Is to remind, keep present what's important. Keep what's important visible, and then help guide the path. But most of that stuff, I know I've watched shows like those behind the scenes kind of shows in football teams, and I get bored after a while, and I think, oh, good God, I could never, be that coach, because I would get tired of saying like the really routine, like really numbskull kind of stuff, screaming it every day and finding a different creative way to say it every day so that the people maybe start listening. Like, it would drive me insane. Like, I couldn't. Maybe that 10 million might make it worthwhile. But like, that's their whole job is functionally to just yell and remind, like, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's how you do what you do. You've known it. You've done it 100 times before, but you forget in a second. Yes. And we don't have those people.
Right. Exactly. So sometimes it's, sometimes you can find those people. Like, I found some great, just results in that kind of thing that you're talking about, just by having a good group of, business friends that we can get together and talk about these types of things candidly, and, kind of be very candid when we're not having a great day, month, week, whatever, and vice versa. When we are shooting it out of the park, and we're killing it, we can talk about that too. I also find that, by kind of like always reading books and articles, like finding good bloggers to follow, and like kind of staying on top of all of that serves as good reminders. Like, I mean, now that I'm in school, I've fallen off of this a little bit, but in normal times when I'm not in grad school and trying to work full time too, I try to regularly be either reading a book or always follow a few bloggers that I really like, that just kind of give you those little kick in the pants from time to time to remind you of things that you already know. And it can kind of like re-energize, stalled efforts, and can kind of get you pumped up and get you ready to go. But I think it's crucial to have, it's funny. One of my classes was in leadership, and we had to we really like learned about and studied a lot of leaders and like what makes an authentic leader. And one of the things that kind of came up time and time again is that really good leaders, good authentic leaders, always have a personal support system, right? They always have, and sometimes it's family and sometimes it's friends, and it's a blend of people, but they always have those people that they can go to. Sometimes it's a mentor, and, people that you would think would never have days of insecurity or days that are not so great, or, kind of like from our viewpoint, they just look like these all out rock stars, not, and they rely on their personal support system, whatever that might look like, to hype them up a little bit. And I think that is just so important and so true of everybody. Nobody exists in a vacuum. Nothing is done alone. You need people, right? You need people to be in your corner. And it's just, I don't think that anybody truly has success without that.
No. I mean, I don't know how we like to picture it that way, for the all-powerful individual that conquers worlds, which modern is like Steve Jobs, and then it's There Will Be Blood, whatever the character was in that movie, just the single men often, usually out there, like, like I'm going to conquer it on my own, and then I guess I'll drag these people along with me that I can kind of torture. But
Right.
yeah, that's a bad model in general for actually having a healthy organization around you. And those folks are often not mentally well, frankly,
Exactly.
right? So,
Yes.
and how and there's no changing out of that mode. Once you become
Right.
the dictator, you can't go any other way. But yeah, I think that support. I mean, you mentioned reading, so information as a reminder, of course, and that's one of the benefits of even like social media and, like LinkedIn. I can curate the feed, so to speak, right? So I'm connected with certain people I know will keep throwing stuff out that's valuable, even though I already know it. And
yes,
being a know-it-all person, like I already know it, right? But like that doesn't actually serve me, because I don't sometimes remember it when it's time to do it. And then, of course, we all have plenty of stuff that we know and we just fail to act on constantly. So, knowing doesn't make the difference. The action does. And translating those two, it helps to have people support and reminding you, and then calling you out sometimes, right, on your bullshit, if that's what there is to do, then it helps. And
that's something that we do, with Meliora. So like when we work with clients and we're doing improvement projects, we always, we take a team-based approach, and we use it here for ESC and we use it on client sites. But whenever we're looking at improving a process or helping a client solve a problem or whatever the case may be, we look at building a cross-functional team within the organization to provide input from lots of different directions, right? Lots of different viewpoints. And that's where the best solutions come from, because it's, we all tend to see things from our vantage point, and having people be able to point out, well, here's how this particular process or here's how this particular problem affects me. You're building sustainable solutions. We actually just completed a project internally here for Meliora that I was the team leader on. And it was interesting because we had, Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belts who have years, decades of experience doing this kind of thing. I'm relatively new at it, right? Just got my green belt. And then we had some other people on our team who had never participated in a project like this before. And the whole goal of it is to take kind of what we've learned over the past couple of years in terms of growing Meliora, right? Looking at where we succeeded, where we failed in terms of bringing on new clients, looking at kind of what we need. By putting all of those people in the room, we did some facilitated brainstorming, we shared ideas, we heard different viewpoints from people who, are responsible for going out and finding business, for people who are responsible for marketing, for people who are responsible for working with existing clients, and also from a couple of our key referral partners who are in kind of complementary businesses that are in a good position to help look. And so hearing all of those different inputs and then kind of blending them together. And we really did try to dig down, root cause analysis is a big thing that we do. And we do an exercise called 5 whys, which is pretty well known, where you just keep asking why and why. Kind of like a 5-year-old, right? Like, we go to the park? No. Why? Because it's raining. Why? Because the weather does that sometimes, right? Those types of things. But, as silly as it sounds, it does help us to drill down to what actually is going on. And then we can begin to together solve for the root cause of a problem. So it helped us to even think about, like, how are we talking about Meliora in the community? How are we talking about it, just kind of to, to other businesses and to people that we run into when we're doing our networking activities? What does our website say about us? How does that translate? We did a voice of the customer survey where we talked to some clients and some people who have never heard of us, kind of like, what does this all mean to you? And so really, like, taking an approach where you're gathering input from lots of different people makes such a big difference. And I think, a lot of times people I find myself in this trap too. I have a lot of experience. I know what I'm doing. So follow my way, right? Which isn't necessarily always the best thing. And sometimes, it takes a little bit of an ego bruising, but, you got to do it because ultimately it's for the greater good. And, you can learn how to kind of approach things in a different way when you take the time to listen to opinions from people who have a different vantage point than you. So I think, that's another thing that's kind of missing when a lot of people are building out their business development strategies. And sometimes it comes from people who don't really have much experience actually doing the work. Or sometimes it's people who haven't actually done that kind of work in years who kind of say, okay, this is what I want you to say, or this is how I want you to do things. And you're not necessarily getting the best approach for that. And so I think that the more you can with anything, any goal you have, any business problem you're looking to solve, the more you can engage and go through like a process of actually collecting information from people and analyzing that and, brainstorming, coming up with solutions. I just think you're going to get so much further. And while it takes a little time to do that, that means that you're spending your future time more positively as opposed to just trying the same thing over and over again and running on a hamster wheel and not really getting it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's you're front loading the work so that you don't have to spend 50 times that amount of time and effort later fixing all the problems that you could have known about. Right. So yeah, that's that makes sense, which sometimes people still won't do because again,
I know.
even when you know it's like, yeah, but I am really busy now. So let's just keep going with what we're doing. And yeah,
I saw this really funny, I have this really funny cartoon that I actually have hanging up in my office that says, it's a picture of a guy in war, right? So they're little war cartoons with a bow and arrow. And then behind him is a guy with a cannon. And the guy with the bow and arrow is saying, I can't talk to you right now. I have a war to fight. And it's like, well, the guy behind you, like what he actually has, right, has the thing that's going to help you accomplish your goal much better than your bow and arrow. And it just, this kind of makes me laugh because I think we do sometimes, like in our efforts of, hey, we're being too busy, miss the opportunity to, take a step back and look at the big picture. You can always build time for that. It's everybody has a lot going on, but setting aside time to really look at those types of things, whether it's engaging in a project or, taking time to read someone's blog or to read a chapter in a book, to me makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, it's not about having no time. It's about it not being a priority, right? I mean, that's
so true.
That's always the dynamic is like, yeah, sure, there's time, but there are 50 things that I'm putting in front of it, which is why I'm not doing it. So yeah, I think that makes sense. So what are you looking forward to the most as you're with your big project or your primary project, right, being creating this strategy? So you've got your core customers for Meliora, and now it's about like, okay, now how do we really roll this out? How do we really create a presence, right? Do all those kinds of things. And now that's I believe kind of like one of your primary focus points, right? So what that's obviously a complex process. It's a fun hit or miss, right? It's like everything in business, and especially BizDev is you're way more likely to fail than you are to succeed, especially at any given point. So knowing, kind of what you're getting into, what are you looking forward to the most out of that?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to being able to share our solution with more businesses here in Buffalo. So one of my favorite things about having a career in Buffalo, and particularly in what we've been doing with ESC for the past, that I've been doing with ESC for the past 10 years, is I've gotten to know so many really cool businesses that I would have never otherwise known existed in Buffalo, right? Because, they're not necessarily a consumer facing business, but they're doing really, really cool, interesting things. And they're tucked away in these little pockets of Western New York. And so being able to, kind of get us to a point where we are out and driving our, helping them to drive their solutions more than what we've been able to do, in the past is really exciting. So we just wrapped up the project I was telling you about, which was just a really cool experience for me to be able to take all this, all these different ideas, all this different information, and put it into a strategy that we can execute on. And it's kind of already beginning to work. Like, for example, one of the big things that we realized is that we have a good opportunity with some of our folks that are on the ESC side that are working with our clients. They're in a good spot to really identify potential problems that, Meliora can help solve. And, same thing with some of our other strategic partners. So we kind of built out the right way to, to approach that, and the right way for them to be able to kind of know what is a problem that we can help solve, or what to look for potential opportunities. It's opened the door to a lot more conversation. So I've had a really good time. I love ESC and what we do, and I love that I'm still connected with that. But I've had a really good time working with the Meliora team too over the past couple of years. So I'm excited that we're getting to a point where we're able to execute on these ideas a little bit more and kind of bring this type of solution to more and more businesses. So certainly not without its challenges. It's funny, the consulting field is a funny field, right? There's a lot of people out there that have been burned by consultants. And so kind of differentiating ourselves and showing that, we're not your kind of consultant that's just going to come in and charge you $500,000 to tell you things that you kind of already knew and get out of there. But we actually are in there making a pretty big difference. Being able to grow that to tell more stories, I'm really excited about that. I feel like we have the right team in place and we've developed the right approach. So, and we've had some kind of early successes on that, like I said. And so I'm excited to push that forward more and just kind of try some of these things, see what happens,
Yeah. That's the fun part, right? Rolling out,
Yes.
see what happens, and you win some, you lose some, but
Right.
you keep on rolling. And I mean, if you didn't lose some of them, there would be no excitement. It would just be activity. So
Totally.
that's fun.
People
too.
are afraid to fail, and I get it. Or like they're afraid, and it's not easy to do. But those are where some of the big lessons come from. Like why did this not go in the direction that I expected it to, and how can I do better next time? And I certainly have had ideas that I thought were genius, and then in practice they were terrible, and it just didn't go the way that I wanted. So like being able to learn from kind of both your successes and your failures. But yeah, I am really excited to see Meliora grow. Like it's a great group of people, really smart, and just being able to kind of see the types of things that they've been able to do for clients. And like I said, being able to do more of that and being in a position where we can do more of that with some of these awesome companies that we have here in Buffalo it's super exciting to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good to be excited about what you're doing, right? That usually helps the work turn out a little bit better. I've noticed.
I can't really imagine not being, right. I think that's something that is also really important. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing, and it has to like genuinely make you happy. And I think that if somebody, goes into a role, particularly a business development role, in any kind of business development, whether it's sales or marketing or customer relationships, account management, whatever the case may be, if you don't really love what you're doing, I don't think you're ever really going to be successful. And I think that it comes through, people, it's almost like we're trained to spot fakes now more so than ever, because maybe it's because of social media, and maybe there's, you can see a lot more kind of fakeness of what people are projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Genuineness comes through time and time again. And there's always something, there's a place for everybody. So like I always, when I look at people that just clearly are just going through the motions and, just kind of in a daily grind, why are you doing that? You're not going to get the success that you want to have. You're going to really not be happy every day. Those are the people, those are the people that are going to wake up on Monday mornings with a pit in their stomach because they don't want to go to work. And like, isn't life just too short for that? So, being able to kind of like be at the right organization at the right time, doing something that you really believe in, like to me, that's the fun part, right? That's what makes this I think that sales is one of the most rewarding careers. And in some ways it gets a bad name. And I think it's because it conjures up images of, the guy in the plaid suit with the briefcase trying to manipulate his way into getting people to buy things. Mm-hmm. That is not an approach that works anymore. You can just easily jump online and read reviews and figure out what other people have to say about your business and all of that. So I think that it's shifted now to a true problem solving, mentality, and seeking out the people whose problems you can solve, and then knowing that you're the one that brought them a solution that, took their business in a direction that they really wanted it to go, or, took away a barrier to them achieving what they wanted to achieve. Like that's the real win to me. And that's what's rewarding. And that's personally what motivates me, both at ESC and Meliora, is the fact that like hearing what our customers have to say about working with us, and like seeing the results of somebody that, that I was able to bring them a solution that worked for us, and internally seeing our company grow. ESC, we're up to about 70 employees. When I started, we had about 30. Over 10 years, we've grown, pretty significantly. And I love that too, being a Buffalo business and, having more people on our team and being able to have a role in helping to create jobs within this awesome company is also incredibly rewarding. So, I hope that anybody that is listening to this and is like thinking about what they do, like, I hope that you really love it. And if you don't, find something you do, and sales will be the most rewarding career that you can possibly have, other than maybe curing cancer. But if you're like me and you don't have a clue where to begin with curing cancer, find a great company and line up with it.
Try out BizDev first and work your way.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if you can cure cancer, do that.
Yeah. If you have the right stuff, go for it, please. That'd be great. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to let you get on with the end of your day here and your evening. But thanks for coming out. And
yeah, this was so fun. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we got to connect just for the sake of connecting again. Because it's been a while. And there's some really good stuff in there about people, I think looking for the right fit for themselves. And then also businesses looking for the right fit for their customers, right? So we managed to kind of get both sides of that in the conversation. So very cool. And I never hate drinking an IPA, especially one from 12 Gates. So way to pick them. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, I hope to see you in real life soon. But again, thanks for thinking of me. This was really fun.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Rachel.
All right. See you soon, Paul.
Bye.